Welcome. My name is Dr. Joan Perez. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about just the housekeeping of our evening. First, I want to introduce Mandy Ng. Mandy is going to be our language and liaison for our Chinese families, and she's going to be simultaneously interpreting for them. And so Mandy, did you want to say something?
大家好，等一会我是学区的人员吴老师，等一会大家需要中文翻译的话，可以点到我们下面的一个地球的形象的 interpretation 里边选中文 Chinese 就可以了。
Thank you, Mandy. And we also have Mrs. Yolanda Palom. And Yolanda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hola, buenas noches, familias. Estamos aquí de nuevo. ¿Se acuerdan de mí, enlace en la comunidad, que siempre les estoy llamando y recordando cosas? Estamos aquí para ayudarles y aquí voy a estar también toda la noche para ayudarles un poquito.
Thank you so much, ladies. Your services are just very valued, and we appreciate you both. I'd like to also let you know that tonight we have, through our registration system, over 100 questions were submitted. Many of them are similar, and we are going to do our best to share with you the answers that we have thus far in our journey. And then if we get through those questions, you are also welcome to, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, a Q&A. Some people have already started submitting some questions there. You're welcome to go ahead and submit additional questions there. We're hopeful that many of the questions that you have will be answered. And with that being said, I'd like to just turn it over to our fearless leader, Jim Symonds, our superintendent.
Excuse me,
thank you, Dr. Perez, and welcome elementary parents.
Interpretation. We
have so sorry. Hold on just one moment.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you. Sorry, ladies.
Sorry about that. We're just solving a little problem. But check it out. It is now officially solved. And there we go. Thank you very much for your patience.
Okay, there you go, Jim.
Well, thank you, Dr. Perez, and thank you, distinguished panelists who are joining us tonight for this hybrid elementary information night for parents, where we're going to talk about phase 3, and hopefully we'll be able to answer many of your questions. There are still many questions, though, that are unanswered at this point because, quite frankly, we are, I like the expression that our governing board president has used, building a plane as we fly it. So we are working right now with our teachers to develop our hybrid model, what that'll look like, keeping in mind, first and foremost, the health and safety of our students and staff. That has been our guiding principle throughout this process and will continue to be our guiding principle throughout this process. With that being said, the next thing we're looking at is how can we deliver our quality instruction to our students in these challenging times with the least disruption to our students' academic programs as possible. So we are looking at several options with our teachers, and our teachers are the true experts. They're the ones that have been doing the virtual learning with the students. They're the ones that will be coming back to the in-person learning when that time will come. And so we've been really relying on our teachers' expertise, their opinions, and their guidance as we build this hybrid model. So we're looking forward to your questions tonight. And if we're unable to answer them tonight, we are going to have more of these parent evenings as we get closer to phase 3. So you know, we are officially now in phase 2 of our Return to Learn plan, because we have opened up our sites and our district office for assessments to students to come back into those sites, our special education students to take one-on-one in-person assessments, and also our LPAC testing has started at our sites too. So that was a big step for us because we got to test a lot of our safety protocols at our sites. We had the Department of Public Health come out to view our safety protocols, and we did very well with those visits. So that was a kind of a test run for us as we move forward and look towards this phase 3, which will involve these safety protocols at the entire site throughout each site in the district. So with that, with no further ado, Dr. Perez will be our moderator this evening, and she'll be asking our panelists questions. And with that, well, I'll let you take it away, Dr. Perez.
Thanks, Mr. Symonds. Let's go across my screen at the top and have you all introduce yourselves as panelists. Heather?
Hi, my name is Heather Wolpert Gawron. I am the 21st Century Learning and Professional Development Coordinator for the San Gabriel Unified School District.
Tuoi, Mr. Nguyen.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tuoi Nguyen, principal of McKinley Elementary.
Mr. Feng.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Feng, principal at Coolidge Elementary School.
Ms. Contreras.
Good evening, San Gabriel. Ivonne Contreras, principal at Wilson Elementary. Thank you for being here tonight.
Ms. Esseln.
Good evening. I'm Ruth Esseln, Director of Student Support and Assessment.
Mrs. Anderson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Anderson. I'm the interim principal over at Roosevelt and also assistant principal at Roosevelt.
And Mrs. Wilson. All the way from Massachusetts.
Yes, I am from Massachusetts tonight. I am Cheryl Wilson. I am the principal at Roosevelt and currently the interim principal at Del Mar.
And actually, that's not her name anymore. Miss Dunville just got married last Saturday and she's on her honeymoon. She's the principal of Washington Elementary and she sends her best wishes. And we wish her well on her new venture in life. So without further ado, we're going to get started with our questioning. The first question is for you, Jim. What would in-person instruction look like in phase 3? And will there be a teacher present?
Yes, so as we look at the hybrid model in phase 3, in-person instruction is what it means. So the teacher would be in the classroom teaching those students. So it will be a smaller group of students, of course, because we have to have social distancing in place. And we're working currently with our teachers, as I mentioned earlier, on a model of whether or not the teacher would be teaching a group of students, one group of students during the early part of the day, maybe a second group of students in the afternoon, maybe the distance learning students in the afternoon separately. There's another model we're looking at called simultaneous teaching, where we would use a special camera and the teacher would teach both groups at the same time. And then another model we've looked at is the virtual academy, where we'd have just two completely separate groups, a group of students that would attend classes in person, and then a separate group of students that would attend a virtual academy. So we're currently working with our teachers on which one of those models, not only meets the needs of the students first and foremost, but would be the most effective way to deliver that instruction. So, we're taking this slowly because we want to make sure we have the right model in place. And as a matter of fact, some of these models are evolving week by week. The simultaneous instruction was just an idea that has popped up within the last month or so, maybe even less, and more research and different elements of that are coming out each day. So yes, in person would mean a teacher in the classroom teaching the students.
Mm-hmm. And what is hybrid? What does that mean, Jim?
So hybrid is essentially a blended learning, a combination of in-person learning and virtual learning. So it can take different forms, as I talked about earlier, but basically that is the definition of hybrid.
Okay. And this is a similar question. When we move to phase 3, will the teacher be instructing in class? And I think you, in class and virtual students at the same time.
So that's one of the things I talked about. The technology is out there and available for us to do that. We actually worked with our Distance Learning 3.0 team today, which is a group of teachers throughout the district. We did preview that type of instruction. We had a model lesson presented by a professor at University of Pepperdine, actually a former Gabriel graduate, Jenny Trapp, and so she's now a professor at Pepperdine. She presented to us this model of simultaneous instruction where the teachers can teach the in-person students at the same time as they're teaching the distance learning students. So it's a very interesting concept that's pretty new in this whole field.
And one of the things I'd like to just add is that we are continuing to collaborate these types of planning sessions with our teachers, because it's really important. They are the instructional experts, and we want to ensure that they are part of the decision-making process to make sure that we put all the requirements in place for hybrid, but also make sure that it's doable. We have to make sure that it's doable. So thanks, Jim. Our next question goes to, I think, Heather. Heather, will our teachers be teaching in class simultaneously with the virtual learning students? I kind of just shared this a little bit. You're on mute. You're on mute.
It feels a little like we've been covering that, but I understand that's a hot ticket. You know, it's what everyone wants to know. But here's what I'd like to say about it, because, you know, Jim had kind of just responded what that would look like. And of course, we're looking, of course, at teachers in the classroom with those students. But here's what I think I really want to stress is that we really want to honor the relationships and the connections that have already been made between the students and the teachers. We know that that is powerful. We know that in a virtual environment, it's slow to build, but when it does, it is really key to achievement. And so we really want to honor that and be as disrupted as little as possible.
And Heather, can you answer this one too? I actually forgot to ask this one of Jim, but I think you could. Will students need to switch teachers if they are in the virtual academy?
So I'm still getting up to see what the differences in the models we're even looking at, because so many things are pivoting day to day. But again, trying to honor those relationships. We are really trying hard to ensure that teachers and students are able to maintain those rosters and maintain those connections. We think it's very important, but we're working hand in hand with teachers because there's just so many challenges. And I mean, this is something we're all learning as we go, as everyone in education is right now. But what we do know is that the key to everything working is the relationship between teachers and students, and we don't want to have to throw cards up in the air and have that start over at some point during the year. That's what we're really trying hard to avoid.
And Jim, did you want to add anything else to that?
Well, I was just thinking as Heather said that too, and one of the things, maybe Joan, you were going to talk about it tonight, is we know Orange County has begun to move into phase 3 down there. And so we've been in close contact with Orange County, and it really has benefited us because we're learning what is working down there and what is not working. So we really have this benefit of seeing what they're doing, learning from their mistakes and their challenges, and it helps guide our process as well. So you're absolutely right, Heather. It depends upon the model we choose, whether or not we will continue and be able to have those students matched with their current teacher. We're certainly hoping that's the case, but it really depends on the model we choose.
Mm-hmm. And along those lines, Jim, I have reached out to several Orange County districts, and one of the things that they have mentioned is that they are trying to keep kids you know, with their current teacher. That's been the greatest challenge. And we'll talk a little bit more about what has to happen behind the scenes to make that happen, because it's quite the challenge with our student information system. And we'll talk about that tonight as well. Okay, next question goes to Mrs. Esseln. Ruth, what is the daily schedule of the phase 3 hybrid model?
First of all, I want to apologize for leaving the screen. All of us are working from home and juggling many things, and I have a cat crying on the other side of the door. So I had to go let her in. I apologize. Don't be worried. I'm still here. All right, so schedules. This is the heart of the questions and the heart of our work. Even in a normal school year, if there is ever a really normal one, but in traditional times, the schedules that you see at a school is always a reflection of the local values mixed with legal requirements, right? So even last year, what you saw in the schedule was a mix of our local values, what we offer, what we ask students to do, mixed with the legal requirements, like how many instructional minutes we have to have. As we begin to look at a hybrid schedule, all of those same requirements come to bear on that conversation. But this year we have so many more legal requirements and health guidelines to take into consideration, making that conversation with all of our stakeholders that much more comprehensive and complex. So it will take us some time to be able to get to a place where we can say this is the exact schedule. As Mr. Symonds already mentioned, we are looking at models, but I don't want to make it sound like it's, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, we're going to pick a schedule. It's very complicated. And I know that a lot of the parents have been very confused about why we sent home a survey when they could not respond to the survey without the information. So we're in this sort of chicken and egg situation, whereas a district, we need to know how many students might be coming back to campus so that we can design an effective model. And the parents are saying, well, we can't tell you if we're coming back until you tell us the model. So I want to put a request out to the parents to give us your information so that we know who's coming back and we can use that data to inform our scheduling. We need to take into consideration how many students will be on campus at lunch. How will we distribute lunch? And you can't really make those decisions until you know how many students on each campus are coming back. So many things need to be taken into consideration. What Heather Wolpert just mentioned, the continuity of relationships is important. The instructional minutes that we have to offer according to the new guidelines from the state. We need to take into consideration space in our classrooms and how many students can be there. So it is, I don't want to overwhelm parents with all the details, but I also don't want to downplay the depth of this conversation, and that something else to take into consideration is, of course, our parents, right? What do our parents, what are they requesting of us, and can that be accommodated? So that's sort of a long answer to the question about what the schedule will look like. And unfortunately, the answer at this point is we don't know, but we will get there faster once we have the information about who is coming back to us.
Thank you for saying that, Ruth. And I just want to add to that while we might not have all the answers for you this evening, and many of the questions that you've asked are still in development with our teachers and our administrators and our staff as a whole, we are committed to honoring you as partners. We've said all along the way that parents are partners. And we will walk you through this process every step of the way. Tonight is just to make sure that you understand why we put out the survey and to answer as many questions as we can right now. But there's a lot of stakeholders involved in this process, and we are doing our best to collaborate with them to make informed decisions. So as we continue on this journey, we will continue to have town hall meetings and make sure that we are walking you through this process. we are not close, you know, to making this decision. It's not going to happen next week, and we are current. I think today we went to red on the tiers, but there's a lot of variables to when we will be able to begin transferring or transitioning over to a hybrid phase 3. So I just want you to know that you will get the information you need. If we don't give you the answers tonight, we will be sure to be following back around with you via your principals, via emails, via social media. We will also be having additional town halls to make sure that your questions get answered so that you can make informed decisions and make decisions that are best for your family and your family's unique needs. With that being said, I know Ruth, you kind of talked a little bit about the scheduling and, you know, it alluded to the fact that many of the details with the bell schedules and things like that have not yet been decided. I'm trying to think, you know, this is a really great question that someone asked Ruth, that I think that would be great if you could address. If there's more than one student in the household, can they be registered to attend in-person class on the same days?
Okay, yes, and that's actually one of the other questions that was asked of me in the submitted questions. So I'll tie them together. We, when people took the survey, they were asked if there's a sibling. And so that is intentional so that we can work with those families. I have 2 daughters who go to Gabriel High School. And so I understand that for some families, it might work better for the students actually to be on different days. And in some families, it'll work better if they were there on the same days. I just want to point out that in answering that question, I am embedding some assumptions about our hybrid schedule, right? And so as a group, we don't want to message something that we don't know is the case. So again, embedded in my response is an assumption that there will be kids coming to school on some days and not another. I think that is certainly part of the conversation, but in answering the question like that, we're not committing to that being our hybrid schedule. So I just want to be careful about not sort of people feeling like I packed an answer inside of that. I think the end response is that we will do our best to be responsive to family needs, especially as it pertains to sibling situations.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Mr. Nguyen, the next question goes to you. What will classrooms look like?
Thank you, Joan. Well, we want to keep students and teachers safe. The head nurse, principals, and various other departments such as business, facilities, and purchasing are currently conducting walkthroughs through each campus. And an important part of the walkthroughs is the classroom. We're visiting all classrooms and making measurements and taking measurements. We're looking at the dimensions of the classroom, how many desks can be arranged in the classroom, and how many students can safely be supported 6 feet apart, and whether, if any, partitions are needed. But ultimately, we're going to be working with teachers and custodians on the final configuration.
Thank you. The next question is also for you, Mr. Nguyen. How many students will be in the classroom at a time? This is based on what you just shared.
We're going to do everything possible to keep students safe and keep the cohort small. Currently, the guidance of the health department defines a cohort as a stable group of no more than 12 children and no more than 2 supervising adults in a supervised environment. We are measuring classrooms to determine how many students can fit safely and they're 6 feet apart. And classrooms vary from size to size, so it's going to vary by classroom. The group will stay together for all activities, including lunch and recess.
And Mr. Nguyen, can you talk a little bit about the PPE that has been ordered through our purchasing department?
Yes, so we purchased for students some disposable face masks and also some cloth face masks. And we're looking for face mask. Oh, actually, we have face masks for teachers and also looking at exploring face shields for teachers and students. And also with the walkthroughs, we have discussed hand sanitizing stations throughout the campuses.
And the shields.
The partitions.
The partitions as well. One thing that I'd like to add to that is through our parent advisory committee, one of the parents on that committee has come forth and shared that he has filming expertise, and he's going to be helping us to create a video that goes over the health and safety protocols so people know what to expect when we return in phase 3. We will be creating that video, and we will be looking at all of these pieces so that you'll know what it looks like. You'll see it in play in the classroom. You'll get to see classrooms. You'll get to see where the stations are for hand sanitizer and just the protocols for dropping off and picking up. And so this video will create that visual for you to share with your family and with your children so they know what to expect in phase 3. Okay, thank you. Our next question goes to Mr. Fang. Mr. Fang, will there be recess, and will children be allowed to play?
I was about to start before I muted myself. Yeah, so to answer the question, yes, part of the walkthrough is kind of talking about what recess will look like. And yeah, absolutely, children will be allowed to play. It'll look different than it did last year. We'll probably have assigned locations and parts of the playground in different areas for each cohort per day or per week. And so they'll rotate around, and they'll be having access to the other the other parts of the facility and the physical plant of the site. But they will have to stay within their cohorts just to maintain that safety.
Thank you, Mr. Fang. And then also there's a question about lunchtime. Can you tell us what you know so far about what that might look like?
So again, a lot of this information is just kind of general in terms of what we know from the Department of Public Health and their guidance. They will be able to eat lunch. The cafeteria will be available for them to eat lunch, but they will have to maintain the social distancing protocols. Students are expected to, wear their masks throughout the day. The only time that they wouldn't would be when they're eating during lunch. And again, one of the benefits of being a school in Southern California is that we have some outdoor space at pretty much all of the sites, all of the elementary sites that is, where students can actually use that space as well to eat. So again, the goal is to make sure we maximize that safe space for them. And are maintaining at that minimum of a 6-foot distance between cohorts.
Thanks, Mr. Fang. All right. Our next question goes back to Mr. Nguyen. Will all students be required to physically attend school?
No, not all students will be required to physically attend school. On Friday, September 25th, a survey was sent home in the mail or by letter to all St. Gabriel families. Families have a choice on choosing between the hybrid model, which is 2 days physically at school and 3 days online, or families may choose to continue with the 100% virtual academy model.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. And we're still working out what that instructional model will look like for in-person versus online, but we wanted to let you know that you do have a choice. You do have a choice. So if it works better for you and your family to keep your child in the virtual academy, 100%, you have that choice. If it works better for you to send your child in person during the hybrid phase 3, you have that choice as well. Another question, Mr. Nguyen, is please clarify if we can make changes once a decision is made between the 100% virtual and hybrid. And actually, Ms. Esseln, if you'll also chime in on that one too.
And so once the choice for in-person versus the 100% virtual academy is made, students will not be able to switch between the two models. The only combination that will be made will be from hybrid to the virtual academy due to a change in the classroom environment.
And Ruth, did you want to add anything to that?
I think I just want to explain the why that is our current thought process on families moving back and forth. And that's because of the space requirements. As Mr. Fang mentioned, we need to have 6 feet physical distance in all classrooms. And if we set up a classroom to maximize the space, it's okay for a student to leave that space and decide to switch to virtual academy. However, it's more difficult for a student who's been at home to decide to enter the physical environment, which maybe has been specifically set up to meet the health requirements. So we are continuing to discuss this particular topic, knowing that, as has been stated so often this evening, things are changing all the time. But we know that if we set up a classroom specifically to be able to meet the needs of the number of bodies in that space and meet guidelines and keep everybody safe and well, that we will not be able to add another student into that physical space if it's at capacity.
And along the same lines, Mrs. Esseln, there are many questions about asking if people or parents can change their minds after submitting the survey. Can you address that?
Yes, yes, they can. I will say it's inflating my numbers when I look at the survey. But yes, many parents have filled out the survey and then changed their mind. So just go through and take the survey again. Just note that we will, if we see multiple entries for one student, the most recent entry is the final answer. So just keep that in mind. Whatever you say last is what we are going to plan for that child.
And what will happen if they don't submit a survey?
All right, so again, because of that physical space requirement, if a family does not turn in a survey, then we will assume that the student is coming back for in-person learning to be part of the hybrid. And again, that's because we need to assume that we need to deal with finding a space for that child, as opposed to assuming that they're going to stay at home. And then when hybrid starts, the family is like, wait, we wanted to be there. So it's much easier for us to move students out of our planning than to move them into our planning. So the default is in-person hybrid.
Awesome, thank you. Our next question goes to Mr. Symonds. Mr. Symonds, can kids with IEPs return first?
This is an issue we're still working on. As you know, we're in phase 2 right now. So we have been able to bring back those students for assessments as part of their IEPs at our assessment center at the district office and at the sites as well. So as we get closer to phase 3, we'll have to look at what that opening will look like, how much lead time we'll get to know, okay, we're able to open on this date, which we do not know that specific date yet. So there's some factors that come into play about bringing those students back. So we'll be working with the Department of Public Health, Los Angeles County Office of Education to receive further guidance on this.
And along the same lines, Mr. Symonds, will students with an IEP have the option to come in more days than 2 in the hybrid model?
Okay, yeah, and this is something that's TBD as well. There's different special education programs. We have SDC, we have our learning center students. So we'll need to work on those schedules with our teachers, which we're currently working on, and see how that plays out, see what that looks like. Our goal is to get those students engaged with the teacher as much as possible, because we know those students really need that in-person learning. So we'll be working with our special education team, our teachers, to determine what those schedules will look like.
Great. And another survey question, Ms. Esseln, what is the current percentage in voting on the survey right now?
You mean how they voted or how many have voted?
Maybe both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So noting we may have some inflation with people putting in the survey more than once. Last time I checked, we had about 2,000 responses out of approximately 5,000 that we are anticipating, approximately 5,000. And at this point in time, although it has remained very consistent, 25% of those respondents want to come back for in-person hybrid model learning. 75% are opting for 100% at-home virtual academy.
Thank you. And we also shared these numbers today with our distance learning teacher team. And so they are taking into consideration these data points as well when we are working collaboratively with them to craft our phase 3 schedules. The other thing that they are taking careful consideration to look at is this parent data. And they're also looking at your questions. They want to know what parents want to know. We shared that information with them so that they can kind of use what you're asking and what you're feeling and how you're responding to develop collaboratively with our team the schedules. We recognize that this is hard stuff. This is really hard. We even talked with our teachers today about just our hopes moving forward and what our fears are. We have every step of the way worked very collaboratively with our teacher teams to ensure that phase 1 with our first round of distance learning went well with our virtual academy. And now with phase 2 opening back up with assessments, we have talked with our teachers as we will talk with our parents and all of our stakeholders at each phase to make sure that we are listening and we are taking all of these metrics into consideration when we're developing our plan. Okay, next question. Flu season is almost upon us. We will expect to have to flip between, will we have to flip between the models? Somebody want to take that one? What about Anne?
Make sure I'm mute before I start talking. I'm sorry, Joan, can you please repeat that question?
Sure. So flu season's almost upon us. Will we expect to have to flip between the models?
I'm going to use our favorite phrase tonight. It's to be determined, depending on what the health department tells us in terms of what we can and cannot do during flu season. So one of the things that our district nurse has told all of us in our management meetings is to get the flu shot to keep us safe. And then we will see where we are when the flu season comes, but we will have a plan working with teachers and other stakeholders to make sure that students as well as teachers are safe when we do return to the classroom.
And that was a great answer. And the other thing that we have shared with our teachers is the model that we land on. We do have to be able to toggle back and forth because the health department, we could have an outbreak and they could shut us down tomorrow. So we really don't know, but we will have to develop a plan that can easily go back into full virtual academy if an outbreak should occur. So good question. Okay, next question. Will there be a plan of communication in place for a family who might have a member who tests positive? Jim, do you want to take that one?
Sure, that's part of our health and safety protocols and the guidelines set forth through the county. So they've given us a whole process if we face a situation like that, not only if a family member at home becomes sick, if a student becomes sick, if a staff member becomes sick, there is a whole outline of protocols we need to follow, contact tracing. So the health Department of Public Health will be working with us on any of these issues as they arise.
Okay, thanks. The next question is about social emotional wellness. This has been a challenging time for our kiddos. Being, in this physical distancing world that we live in. And one of the things that we have kept in the forefront all throughout this process is our the social emotional wellness of our students. Ms. Esseln, will you share a little bit about what we're doing behind the scenes and how we're reaching out to kids and what our plan is moving forward with phase 3?
Yes, I can, and I would just ask that one of the principals follow up behind me to do a little bit more in depth with what's happened with SEL, social emotional learning at their sites. So over the summer, we anticipated that there was going to be a high need for us to be organized around providing social emotional support to our students, our families, and our staff. And so there is a mental health and wellness steering committee that meets weekly. The priority at the beginning of the school year was to provide teachers with tools for how to respond when students were in crisis. And so that response card, we call it, for teachers has gone out so that they understand how to respond in moments of crisis. We also are meeting with our counselors on a regular basis to support those who are supporting others to make sure that they are supported in that. And so with social emotional learning for students, that is embedded into every week at the schools. And I don't want to take somebody else's thunder. So if one of the principals could step in and talk about what is being provided for students, because I know there's a lot of good stuff happening.
Yes, I can chime in. I know specifically at Wilson, but we collaborate a lot, the elementary principals. So I know that if it's probably being done at Wilson, it's probably being done at the other site. So we just make sure that we're keeping in touch daily, if not, a few times a week with our teachers about their students and making sure that we make ourselves available to be that extra person to keep an eye on the families and the children. So with that said, we also have, when the teachers refer somebody to us, or when they have a concern, which our teachers are so fabulous about doing that. They equally honestly care about academics as much as their emotional well-being. Sometimes, they come to me with just their heart on their sleeve and asking for, more resources for their student, because they know that their student and their family is not going to be able to learn unless that emotional piece and that wellness is taken care of. So we have a fabulous counseling team. We all share, a few of us share Mrs. McIntosh, and she's just fabulous about keeping tabs with all the kids that were on her caseload last year and anybody who may need some attention this year, as well as I think the counselors are working together to establish their own Google a resource center and a place for them to come and meet with children and families. So our staff's just going beyond just making sure that our families have those resources, and so you're not alone out there, and we understand. A lot of us are parents. A lot of us are parents of even children in the district, and so we're here for you, and we just encourage you. And I know I speak on the behalf of all the principals that this is very humbling times. So if you have a need, without judgment, please just reach out, because we need to make sure that we take care of you and your children so that they can learn. So I hope that helps.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody else want to piggyback on that? Go ahead, Mrs. Anderson.
Roosevelt, most of our teachers do a wellness check in first thing in the morning. That's like their opening slides. And the students submit a form, and a virtual form. And if there's any glaring errors, it's usually asking how are they feeling today? What is one thing they appreciate or one thing they're excited about? And if there's anything that sends up red flags, our teachers then forward that response to our counselors. And that our counselors shared with Washington. And Miss Jennifer is wonderful. She comes in, she pops in and checks on the kids. I know that there's also some SEL happening in terms of for lower grades. That is some push-in instruction. On top of that, tonight we actually just finished our SEL parent ed with some of our families, because we know that the students are not just acting a little out of sort in the classroom. We also know that it's manifesting outside of the classroom. So they're probably a little extra antsy at home. They're probably a little extra grouchy, not getting the right amount of sleep or getting too much. So we talked a little bit about some soothing techniques for our students and how parents can help them de-escalate. Mindful Mondays, Thoughtful Tuesdays, things like that, help them ground, to be okay with the way they're feeling. And that, like Ms. Contreras said, they're not alone. All of us are feeling the grumpiness or the loss of connection. And I think I echo Mrs. Contreras' comment as well, is as parents, this is an extremely stressful time for all of us. So I think our next series will have to be self-care for parents.
You know, that is such an important piece. And I know that Heather, you've been doing a lot with the parents as partners. And I know Ruth, you've been doing work with the steering committee. Do you both want to elaborate on that as well?
Sure. So, yeah, I've been really, I've been facilitating the Parents as Partners Learning Series. I'm hoping that the parents on the webinar today have heard about it through the robocalls and the Blackboard Connect and maybe through your PTAs. We have had a number of different webinars focused on parent wellness, supporting our students at home. I wanted to let you know of one in particular that is coming up based on the conversation that we're now having. We are bringing in an expert to talk about how to keep your kid physical and active at home. That will be happening in November. So if you could check the Parents as Partners website off of the San Gabriel Unified website, then you will be able to click on that webinar and register for that. All are welcome. And Ruth, I'm going to pass it to you because you're going to be joining the Parents as Partners team for a webinar as well. If you want to tell a little about what you're going to be sharing.
I actually don't know what you're talking about, but I have something to share.
The resources, are we doing the resources webinar of all the supports that are available in the San Gabriel community? That's the one that we're going to be running.
Yes, and okay, so I want to just add to that. So San Gabriel Unified is very lucky that we have a full-time social worker on staff. And so she and I are working together. And she is creating a website, an active website that is comprises a lot of resources for parents. There right now at our website, there's a little bit of an out-of-date parent resource guide. And with anything that you print, you print and you put a year on, it says it's 2018. So we are moving that to being something that is dynamic and virtual and is a website. So that link to those resources will be emailed out to our entire community. We're going to tag on to that Heather's Parent as Partners series so that parents get in one fell swoop an email with both of those resources. But more importantly, there will be a link in that email to a Google form that parents can fill out. And let me explain what that's going to be, because Dr. Perez and I just problem solved this. So as the Director of Student Support, I get a lot of emails telling me about resources for families. And people get a lot of emails right now. And so we were trying to figure out what to do with these resources. So what families will be able to do is let us know if you want us to forward these resources on to you. Because people don't want to get bombarded with a million emails. But if you tell us, yes, we want to be included in this, in these resources, then when something comes across my desk, for example, food pickup, or their free personal protective equipment for parents, that information will be emailed out to the families who let us know they want that information. So that's in process, and I think that's another layer of again, meeting the needs of our families, both by not sending emails that you don't want, but reaching out to people and saying, if you want this information, we will start pushing it out to you.
We're getting a lot of questions tonight about things like COVID testing and flu shots and things like that. We will be sharing more with parents about resources for testing and for flu shot. Ruth, is that something that we could even add to the website? Just local places where they can get free flu shots?
It came into my, it actually was emailed to me this afternoon from LACO,
Okay,
all of
great.
those resources. So we can definitely include that.
Thank you. Thank you. We will also, in our next town hall, invite Kathy Leon, our district nurse, to be able to answer some of these more medical health and safety questions. And she's been such an integral part of all of this planning. As Mr. Nguyen had shared, she and our Assistant Soup of Business Services, Mr. Will Wong, they've been going out to all of the sites and walking the sites and making sure that they have everything we need to mitigate risk and open as safely as possible when we move to phase 3. And we also had a question with regard to PE and music. Will students be able to return for PE and music? Jim, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so I know it's a big question. And so right now, you know, the guidelines with this kind of fall along the same lines as phase 3. So, you know, we're currently working with our high schools on the return of sports. And so right now, throughout the county, you know, we're able to start putting plans together to have students come back for conditioning. And so we'll see what that looks like. We'll be working with CIF, Los Angeles County Office of Education, and Los Angeles Department of Public Health to see what that looks like with music and things like that. Of course, you know, we know that COVID-19 is transmitted through the air now, so we do have some restrictions on that. And so there will be restrictions on those type of activities when we come back. So we know at this point, those type of activities aren't allowed, but we'll be receiving further guidance from the Department of Public Health as we move forward with those activities.
Okay, thank you, Jim. One of the questions that we had a whole group of questions that addressed timeline and the time frame for this. Well, tonight we've done our best to give you the information that we have right now. We are still struggling with, you know, being able to provide you the details because we just don't know. We're still working with the Department of Public Health. We're working with the state of California and our teachers and stakeholders to figure out this plan. And Cheryl, did you want to just address, you know, where we are with timeline and what that might look like?
I'm sorry, Joan, you keep cutting out. So could you repeat that question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you would elaborate a little bit more about the time frame that we're looking at for phase 3 based on our discussions.
Okay, so we are considering a phase in of students, possibly starting with the younger students of TK through 2nd grade, starting first, and then 3rd through 5th grade. It's possible that it could be a November, December start for those grades, depending on what the state and the county recommends for us. And then for the older students, we're also looking at our schedules and timelines of when a good break is in between, like for the high school, they are on semesters, and it would be wiser to start the high school back by January when they start a brand new semester than in the middle of a semester currently. So again, it will be questionable whether the state and the county allows us to open that soon, and also that make sure that we have all the safety precautions in place before students begin.
Thank you, Cheryl. And Ruth, do you want to just, I know this is our elementary parent group, but they may have secondary students, and we talked a lot today about just our student information system and the things that need to happen behind the scenes. Will you just elaborate a little bit for our parents about what that might look like and why we are considering this staggered start like Cheryl was sharing?
Yes, and I will try and do it simply because it can get a little technical. So everybody, hopefully the families are familiar with Parent Portal. Parent Portal is part of a company called Aries, and that is a company that our district uses for what's called our student information system. It is the backbone of all of our information. It runs our attendance systems, it runs our counseling, it runs our scheduling. So at the elementary school, that's not such a big deal, right? Students go to one teacher and they stay there all day. But once you make that transition to 6th grade through 12th grade, then students have very complicated schedules. And we rely on our student information system to help us take all like the student requests that they want to take. I want to take English, I want to take math, I want to take science. We take all of those requests and we allow the computer to distribute students into all those sections. We may do a little fixing here and there with our hand, with our hands, but other than that, we rely on this computer system to sort students. So we are in the middle of what's called a term. And those of you at Gabrielino or Jefferson understand that that means it's like a semester. And the semester is a finite space of time. And especially at the high school, what happens at the end of the term is that students are assigned credit. So a student gets 5 units of credit for each class. That credit is captured in a transcript, and the transcript is what's sent to colleges. So what we are concerned about is that if we abruptly end, am I frozen?
No.
No, okay, it's twirling around. If we abruptly end our term, close it, and then reopen with a new master schedule, that potentially could create new schedules for students. Again, as I stated at the beginning, we allow the student information system to sort students into classes. And so if we close the term and say we want to sort of start from scratch, and I don't want people to freak out. I'm telling you what could happen in a very technical sense. I'm not saying this is what is going to happen. I'm explaining a technical phenomenon. If we close the term and reopen the term, then we would have to initiate a new master schedule, which potentially could mean having to assign credits in the middle of the term. So potentially having a transcript that has 3 units of credit that then gets closed and captured, and then 2 units of credit for the last, bit of space when we move to hybrid. That would be challenging to explain to colleges why our transcripts look completely different. And our students we have already communicated to colleges about the uniqueness of what happened in the spring. So this would be another level that would need to be communicated. So again, I want to be really clear that I'm not sharing this for panic. I'm not sharing this to cause concern. It is a technical aspect of working with the student information system. And that as we look at hybrid, particularly at the middle school and the high school, that we want to do that without closing the term. We want to maintain our attendance. We want to maintain the credits. And I see the translator putting her hands to her temples, which means that I've been too complicated. Sorry, Yolanda. So, okay, there you go. That's the details of our Aries student information system and secondary.
And why that's important for elementary is because there are so many families that have elementary students and secondary students. So when we're thinking about kids being able to graduate and get the transcripts they need to go on to college, we have to factor that into our decision. And when we're thinking about how do we keep families together in the same cohort, that's all part of this process that's happening behind the scenes. So in an effort to answer as many questions as we could tonight, based on what we know right now, we also know that there are just as many, if not more, questions still to be answered. So I want to be mindful of our time. Again, our purpose tonight was to really help parents understand, why did we send out that survey? And why did we need to start this process without knowing all of the details right now? And the simple answer is this: we needed to do that so we could begin planning, so we could begin to think about the safety measures we have to put in place to physically distance kids, so that we could make sure that we had all the PPE that needs to be ordered for in-person instruction. So these are all pieces that needed to start moving, and the only way we could do that was to send out the survey to get to a better understanding of how parents were feeling about coming back in person. So with that, there were questions that we didn't get to tonight. We are going to save those in our chat. We are working tomorrow with our reopening task force team to begin creating a part 2 or an addendum to our return to learn plan, where we go deeper in detail with what the hybrid model is really going to look like and what we can expect when we make that transition. Right now, we don't have a timeline for that. We don't know when we will be doing that, but we don't want to be flat-footed and not start the planning should things change quickly. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to our wonderful superintendent to close us out.
Thank you so much, Joan. And thank you to our panel members. I want to give you guys a hand. You did a great job tonight answering all those questions. We realize there's many unanswered questions. As we build this plane, as we fly it, we're gathering information. One of the things that we have decided as a district, it's best if we collaborate when making these decisions. So we are taking all those questions in the chat. We're working with our stakeholder group, our task force to reopen the district, working with our teachers in our distance learning, with our bargaining units, both our Teamsters and SGTA. We are working with parent groups. We are working with our administrators. Everyone has a say in how this plays out. Everyone has a say and gets their voice heard in what we decide. This will not be my decision. This will not be the cabinet's decision. This will be all of our decision, along with our wonderful governing board guiding us through this. And so we will make this decision as a district. We may not all agree with the decision at the end, but everyone's voice will get to be heard, and we will collaborate to make the best decision for, number one, as I talked about, safety and health of our students and staff, and then the most effective instructional model possible that works best for our students. Those will be our guiding principles as we go forward. We'll be staying in contact with all of you. We'll be having more of these town hall meetings at all the different levels. We are available for questions. You can get a hold of us by calling us, emailing us. We will be happy to have a conversation with you. Reach out to your teachers, principals. We're all here to serve you. So I have to thank all of you parents at home too. Our distance learning has been a huge success so far. I think by looking at a survey that says 75% of parents wouldn't mind staying in the virtual academy is a testament to the hard work that all of our teachers have been doing throughout this time, the creativity that we've seen, the lessons that they're presenting, just the exhausting work of providing instruction through this whole new format. And of course, behind the teachers and behind the students are all of you parents who I know, and I've heard the stories, and I've had the phone calls with you when you've had to take a break because you have to go help your child with a math problem or a question they're having. I know the work you're doing behind the scenes, and we can't do it without you. You are a vital piece of this puzzle in helping our students. So we thank all of you for all the work you're doing to make this work and make it effective. It will take a team. It will take all of us to move forward. So I thank all of you for joining us this evening. Please reach out to us. We will all get through this together, and we'll be stronger together. So with that, Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone. And I just want to let you know we did record tonight, so we'll be posting that up on our website on our Parents as Partners page. Thank you so much, and rest assured we will circle back with you soon when we have more answers. Thank you.